Even if you filthy rich, it's something in your life that you don't like that you're substituting with addiction abuse. Whew. You substituting with addiction abuse, dog. You could be filthy rich. You got to be connected to something that you like, something creative. What is it that you like doing, man? Figure that out. Instead of using that substance tomorrow, figure out what you like doing and do it, even if you can't afford it. Because at the end of the day, you're going to keep abusing yourself. You're going to keep hindering yourself, and you ain't going to live a full life, a life that's worth living. Addiction is crazy, man. You put somebody by themselves, they'll want to choose the drug because they don't have no connection to the world, to other humans, to life. They'll choose the drug so they can substitute that lack feeling that they have. But if you give somebody an opportunity and they know what they want to do, first you got to know what you want to do. If you know what you want to do it, man. If you want to be a runner, you 50, just go walk until you capable of running. Just do it, man, so you can leave that addiction
policies
alone.
that we're carrying out in the United States and abroad.
Well, there's a lot of things, but the one that most took me aback is, if you had asked me when I started researching my book Chasing the Scream 10 years ago now, Johan, what causes heroin addiction? I would have looked at you like you were an idiot, and I would have said, well, Greg, the clue's in the name, right? Obviously, heroin causes heroin addiction. We've been told this story for 100 years that's become totally part of our common sense. It was certainly part of mine. But what I learned is that story is not totally wrong. Chemical hooks are definitely real. But actually, the evidence shows they're a shockingly small part of the picture. Actually, something much more important is going on. And I only really began to understand it when I went to Vancouver and interviewed an incredible man named Professor Bruce Alexander, who did an experiment in the 1970s that's really begun to transform how we think about addiction all over the world. So Professor Alexander explained to me, this story we've all got in our heads, that addiction is caused primarily or entirely by exposure to the chemical hooks, comes from a series of experiments that were done earlier in the 20th century. They're really simple experiments. Anyone listening, you can try these experiments at home if you're feeling a little bit sadistic. You take a rat, you put it in a cage, and you give it 2 water bottles. One is just water, the other is water laced with either heroin or cocaine. If you do that, the rat will almost always prefer the drug water and almost always kill itself within a couple of weeks. It'll die by overdosing, right? So that's our story. You try the drug, you want more and more of it, until eventually you overdose. But in the 70s, Professor Alexander came along and he said, well, hang on a minute. You put these rats alone in an empty cage where they've got nothing to do except use these drugs. What would happen if we did this differently? So he built a cage that he called Rat Park, which is basically heaven for rats. They've got loads of friends, they've got loads of cheese, they've got loads of coloured balls, they can have loads of sex. Anything a rat can want in life is there in Rat Park. And they've got both the water bottles, the normal water and the drug water. And of course they try both, they don't know what's in them. This is the fascinating thing. In Rat Park, they don't like the drug water. They hardly ever use it. None of them use it compulsively. None of them overdose. So you go from almost 100% compulsive use and overdose when they do not have the things that make life worth living for them, to no compulsive use and overdose when they do have the things that make life worth living. The thing I really learned from this is, so the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. Valuable though that is to many people, the opposite of addiction is connection.